My friend, social media is not real life. Instagram is not real life. And as you embark on your entrepreneurial ventures, I really just want to set your expectations clearly with this video. Now, there's some stuff that you see on social media that's genuinely misleading on purpose by intention. And there's some stuff you see on social media that isn't ill-intentioned, it just doesn't give you the full picture. Even in my personal case, I've been uploading on YouTube for 10 years. And the reason I keep my old YouTube videos up is so that way you can see the 15-year-old me, the 16, 17-year-old me as I'm building my businesses up. But even now, 10 years later, it's not that I don't want to share everything on social media, it's that sometimes you can't share everything on social media. Social media really has created a bit of this false perception because you just see, I have this tattoo here that says private victories. And one of the reasons I got this tattoo when I was younger is because a lot of times people would see me with a nice watch and they saw the public victory, but they didn't know the private victories that went into it. So that's for the people with good intentions. Then, as I said, there's genuinely people with bad intentions that are just trying to fool you or portray the wrong image. So today, I want to put your mind at ease and give you a realistic understanding of this online landscape and how to navigate your way through it. So with all that being said, I need to tell you something that's either going to completely shift your perspective or piss you off. But either way, you need to hear this. You know that feeling you get when you're scrolling through social media and everyone just seems to be living this incredible life while you're sitting there wondering, what am I doing wrong here? That guy who's posting his Lamborghini, or the influencer in Bali with the perfect setup, or your friend who just somehow managed to land their third property, and you're sat there thinking, how is everyone so far ahead of me? Well, here is what I need to make abundantly clear to you right now, okay? And it's this: you are not behind. You are not failing, and you are definitely not broken. What you're seeing online, you're just looking at it from the wrong perspective. Now, as I said, I've been in this space for over 10 years. So because of that, I've seen behind the curtain of this entire industry, and I've also become privately a personal mentor or advisor to many of the top people that you look up to in this space. And what I'm about to share with you in today's video truly is going to completely change the way you look at wealth, success, and your own financial journey, because the truth is we all have different timelines. Listen, I genuinely care about helping you understand something that took me way too long to figure out. There are patterns and realizations about wealth creation that no one talks about, not because they're secrets, but because they're just not as obvious as they seem. And once you understand these patterns, that feeling of being behind completely disappears. So, in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 reasons why everyone seems to have more money than you and exactly why you feel this way. And by the end of this, you're going to have a completely different framework for looking at your own progress. And honestly, you might realize that you're doing way better than you think. But before we dive into those reasons, I want to hear from you. What's stopping you from making more money? Be honest with me. Drop your answers in the comments. No judgment at all. I've allocated more time these days to actually going ahead and reading every single comment and responding to a few of you guys as well. And these responses also actually help me to curate and shape future content. So with that being said, let's get into why you feel this way. All right, let's talk about the first reason, and this is kind of the elephant in the room. Most luxury you see online is rented, leased, or bought on credit. Let me go ahead and pull back the curtain on something I've seen firsthand in this industry. That guy who's flexing his Lamborghini in his ad rented for $1,000 a day. The entrepreneur in that massive mansion, it's an Airbnb they booked for 48 hours at $800 a night, specifically for the purpose of content creation. Having been in this space for 10 years, I've seen behind the scenes of many of these people. Most of them are drowning in debt while projecting wealth. And let me tell you about the reality of a lot of these people that you might be looking up to online, or maybe not looking up to, but just sitting there and going, how are they so far ahead compared to me? And the truth is, a lot of them are spending $15,000 a month on car leases that they can barely afford. That designer wardrobe and shopping sprees, those are maxed out credit cards. That luxury watch oftentimes is fake. And here is what most people don't realize about those luxury cars you see online. Over 80% of new luxury vehicles aren't owned outright. They are either leased or financed. And by the way, for cars over $100,000, it's over 90% leased or financed. And by the way, I want to make something very clear. Financing a lot of times actually makes more financial sense. I'm just saying that $500,000 car, when you actually break down the monthly payments, you don't know what kind of interest rate they're getting hit with. You don't know if they went for a 5 or a 6 year financing option and they're just paying ridiculous amounts in interest, which is just not financially responsible. So listen, no hate on financing. A lot of times it makes sense for most people. And in fact, most wealthy people do finance. I'm just saying that massive purchase you see, you're thinking $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 for the car. But if you actually break it down month by month, you really don't need as much money to afford these luxury vehicles as people think. And then furthermore, a lot of people are leasing, or even worse, a lot of people are just renting for a couple of days, take a few pictures to recycle on their Instagram stories, and that's it. So let's unpack this further. According to a former luxury car salesman who is cited in a financial analysis, these are his own words. When selling new cars, I found that the majority of people buying the higher end cars honestly shouldn't have been. And that's the people I'm speaking to. If you're financing and you're in a great financial position, great, that's responsible. But in his own words, a majority of people buying the higher end cars honestly should not have been. They were not in the financial position to do so. 80% or more of them, they almost always came in owing more on their trades than they were worth. So basically they were in negative equity. They put down very little cash and were close to being financially strapped. So as I said, these are not wealthy people. They are financially stretched to their absolute limits just to maintain the appearance of wealth. There is a very basic financial rule that most experts recommend. You should not spend more than 10 to 15% of your monthly income on transportation. And by the way, for me personally, I still think that's a lot. Now I get it, obviously, as your income expands, you shouldn't be spending more money on cars just for the sake of it, but that's just a general rule that people recommend. Now I know multiple people in this online space with Bugattis that don't even own their own car. It's just a 6-figure a month lease where they have to return the car back at a certain point. And they spend 150 grand a month on these Bugattis just to market a lifestyle that they can't even afford. So that is what you see on social media. Behind the scenes, you don't see the anxiety they have every single day checking their bank account. And this financial strain is exactly why the entire luxury rental market has exploded in recent years. The global luxury car rental market hit $30 billion in 2022 and is expected to reach $60 billion by 2029. You see, what happened was during the pandemic, searches for luxury car rentals absolutely skyrocketed. And by the way, this increase was not driven by people traveling. It's specifically for social media content creation. People want to project the image of being wealthy online without the financial burden. And by the way, nothing against car rentals. Sometimes if it doesn't make sense to ship one of my cars, there's absolutely nothing wrong with renting. And by the way, also, if you can't afford these cars, I'm super down. And I think it's amazing if you rent one of these luxury cars for one day to experience it, to sit in the car, to be like, this is something I aspire to. It's something I look up to. And it's to make it something aspirational for you. I think that's beautiful. But understanding that you're still not there yet. And you shouldn't give yourself the props or your flowers or the validation like, oh, I accomplished something here. But the issue is when these people rent these luxury cars and then they almost trick themselves into believing as if it's their own. It's like, no. Experience it, aspire to have it one day, but then get to work. And also don't project that to the world as if you're at that place. I have never rented a car that I didn't already have at home. I think I can say that hand on heart. Or actually, in fact, there's a car I'm renting for 7 days for a road trip this year in summer, but I already have 5 cars that are the same price as that car. So it's genuinely just to try it out and experience it. But one thing I can tell you, I'm not gonna be posting this rental on my social media acting as if it's my own. So I think with all this stuff, it just comes down to the intention and the way that you do it. Now, really what I think most people lose sight of is this. Being wealthy is about defense. It's about making sure that you are good for the rest of your life. It's about making sure that you have assets that are solid, that are secure. That is what being wealthy is about. And that to me is aspirational. Being rich is like, sure, whatever. Like, honestly, most people can get there. But being wealthy is something that's truly aspirational. You always want to put your assets before toys. For me, it is very simple. Your mom has a house. You have a house. Every one of your loved ones has a house. You have assets. You have bonds. You have stocks. It's about making sure that you have a solid fortress around your financial life. And once you've done that, go crazy with the cars, go crazy with the lifestyle, do whatever you want to do. If you want to live a good life, no one should shame you for that. You know, people tell me all the time, oh, but you live a crazy lifestyle. I don't think it's that crazy. I follow a very simple rule. With me personally, even though people look at my lifestyle and think it's crazy over the top, at the end of the day, I save and invest 70 to 80% of everything I make these days. Now, some people might go, oh, you spend too much money, or why do you need all these things? It's like, I don't know, maybe because I fucking work hard, maybe because I'll never be this young ever again. I believe you should be responsible, but like, don't be too responsible. Like, you only have one life. In fact, even now, it's getting to a point where I, in good conscience, can't even spend more money on living a good life. So at this point, I'm almost at 90% now of everything I make, I save and invest. So the real point I'm trying to get across here is not to not buy the nice stuff. Go buy yourself the nice car, the nice watch. And by the way, this is a separate discussion for another day. I can make a video about this. I've probably spent $5 million on watches, but I've probably made an extra 25 to 30% on my watch portfolio. So like, yeah, sure, I'm wearing expensive watches, but they're investments and they're assets. So yeah, maybe on some watches I lose because I like them, and other watches watches, I make more. But at the end of the day, who cares? It's assets. And by the way, cars in the same way, it's really difficult to make money with cars, but there's definitely ways to make sure that you're buying cars at the low end of the depreciation curve, and you let some other knucklehead buy it brand new and walk out the showroom and feel like the big boss and all this stuff, and you let him take the $30,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 or the $250,000 depreciation on a car. I mean, even just yesterday, I had a McLaren 765 LT delivered to my house. The guy bought it for 2.5 million dirhams, which I think is like $700,000 or something like that. And that was 2 years ago, and I just bought it for 1.15. Now, some people would say, oh, you make so much money, why don't you just buy a new? I don't know, because the satisfaction of knowing that someone else literally took a $450,000 depreciation on the car makes me driving it that much more enjoyable. I drive it, I drive it so happily knowing that I'm not that idiot. And that also means that I can keep my hobby of buying cars and driving all these nice cars going for even longer, because I'm losing less money. In life, it's not about how much money you spend, it's about how much money you lose. And that's something you have to remember. A lot of times, the person that spends $1 million on this thing, but that they can sell for $1 million, is actually less financially irresponsible than the person who buys something for, let's say, $150,000 and it's only worth $75,000 or $100,000 6 months later. So this is the mindset that you need to get in. It's not how much money you spend on something, it's how much money you lose on something. So that is a very long-winded way of basically saying that just because someone is living a good lifestyle, it doesn't mean that they're a faker. It actually really annoys me when I see people judging others for living a good life, spending money on things that are important to them and not spending money on things that aren't important to them. Because unfortunately, they also get thrown in this bucket when they have all their ducks in a row, even if they've earned the right to spend the disposable income on nice things. You should spend on nice things, but as I said, let's focus on asset generation, on making sure that your defense is strong before you start spending on all this other frivolous bullshit. I'll give you some perfect examples. I see all the time people saying, oh, you know, the most wealthy people, they don't spend any money, you know, they live simple life. It's like, no, that's what they want you to believe. Like, if you're actually around the highest levels, like, you understand these people spend like crazy, because why not? Why work so hard and look at something and be like, if I like it, why not just buy it? You need to imagine that for some of these people, I'm not joking, it's the equivalent of buying one toothpick. Like, them buying a supercar or hypercar is the equivalent of you buying a toothbrush. Like, that's the same. So I'll give you an example of Mark Zuckerberg. You know, people say, oh, he's so humble, he wears the same outfit every day, not realizing that he literally wears Brunello Cucinelli head to toe, and his t-shirt costs $3,500, and he probably wears it once and then throws it away and just wears a different t-shirt the next day, because why not? So you basically just need to factor in both of these sides of the spectrum. Just because someone's living a good lifestyle, that doesn't mean they're not someone worth listening to, but also someone who's only living a good lifestyle and doesn't play defense and doesn't actually have any assets. Don't let those people drag you down mentally and demoralize you from chasing your dreams and your entrepreneurial future. By the way, another funny thing about Zuckerberg, he literally has a $30 million Pagani in one of his dozens of deca million dollar homes. So to drill home the point, it's not so much that someone has a nice lifestyle, it's more that they prioritize nice lifestyle before they prioritize the other things in their life, which is making sure they have assets, making sure that they've built their fortress and their defense system in their financial future. All right, so let's discuss the second reason. You see, 5 to 10K a month with freedom is better than 100K a month without it. Because let's face it, you're not really rich if your Rolex tells you what time you need to report to your boss's office. Listen, I need you guys to truly understand this. Making $100,000 a month while being chained to your phone 24/7, missing your kids' baseball games, and popping Xanax to sleep at night isn't wealth. It's an expensive prison. And I have seen both sides. There are people in my industry making astronomical monthly figures who can't take a weekend off without their entire business crumbling. Meanwhile, I know folks bringing in a steady $8,000 a month who design their days exactly how they want, travel whenever they feel like it, and never miss the moments that actually matter in life. What no one tells you is that true wealth isn't just a number in your bank account. It's having the freedom to control your time, your location, and make decisions without financial pressure. The richest people I know aren't the ones with the most dollars. They're the ones with the most life. For me, it truly comes down to waking up without an alarm because you want to start your day, not because you have to. So, before you chase that bigger number, really ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? And is that sacrifice actually worth it? Now, the third thing I want to discuss is that success often comes with sacrifices that you probably wouldn't want to make, because very few people show you the real price tag of success on social media. You see the end result, the cars, the trips, the lifestyle, but you don't see what it actually cost them to get there. So let me just go ahead and break down what most successful entrepreneurs I know had to sacrifice. We're talking about 3 to 5 years of saying no to almost everything. No to vacations, no to nights out, no to relationships, no to sleep. Some of the most financially successful people I know missed their 20s entirely. They were building while everyone else was living. I started making money online when I was 14 and made my first million at 18. And by the way, I even know that was a very fast timeline. But what most people don't see is that I was working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. I missed family events. I lost touch with friends. I sacrificed my health. There were periods of time where I barely left my apartment for weeks. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Extraordinary results require extraordinary input. As you can see, whatever you put in is what you will get out. So while your friends were out on Friday nights, the successful person that you envy was likely hunched over a laptop solving problems no one else wanted to deal with. And even now, at my level, there are trade-offs. The mental burden of responsibility for a massive team, the constant decision fatigue, the pressure of knowing people's livelihoods depend on me making the right calls. So before you beat yourself up about not being there, ask yourself honestly, are you actually willing to pay the full price of admission? Because if you knew the real cost up front, you might realize that you would rather design a life with different trade-offs. One that prioritizes balance, presence, and enjoyment over maximum financial output. And by the way, I want to make this clear, this is not about discouraging ambition. It's about being honest about what it takes so you can make conscious choices rather than blindly chasing someone else's definition of success. What a horrible thought that you end up on your deathbed and you look at your life and you're like, I didn't want that. That was someone else's version of success. Now, by the way, if your version of success is work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that is your entire life, you never have kids, you never have hobbies, and that is true to you, kumbaya, amazing. You have the most successful life out there because you are being true to yourself. Whereas if you're like, all I want to do all day is surf, hang out with my kids, make $4,000 a month online, and live somewhere that's very low cost, and that's my definition of success, you are literally just as successful as the multi-billionaire. Pick your poison, because at the end of the day, we're all gonna die. And we are not gonna take anything with us from this life. So please never let someone else define your definition of success. And I know a lot of you guys are sitting here and you're like, okay, well, Eman, very easy for you to say, but I'll be very transparent with you guys. Even in my life, I know that there are certain things that I want to accomplish, not because I can't, but because I'm just not willing to sacrifice for that. I say this all the time. I know that I will not build a billion-dollar unicorn company from the ground up. Listen, I'm at that stage in my career where I've worked so hard to build everything that I built, where I don't think I want to sleep on the floor while I have this unicorn business that I'm trying to build and I've got investors that I have to respond to and blah, blah, all this stuff. Like, I'm just not willing to do that. Like, I'm just not willing to build that billion-dollar unicorn company from scratch. Now, am I going to hit $1 billion? 100%. There's no questions asked about it. I already have companies of mine that I have significant stakes in that are worth $1 billion. But that's not the point in this video because, you know, net worth and company valuations, it's always, this stuff can change so quickly and it's always up in the air. But the real point I'm trying to get across here is this. I see firsthand from close friends of mine, advisors of mine, what it's like to sleep on the floors as you build your multi-billion-dollar company. And most people don't understand, if you want to walk away personally with $1 billion after dilution, okay, this is very important. Most normal people don't understand this stuff. After dilution, well, then you're looking at a $5 to $10 billion company maximum. Well, then you need to build your company to a $5 to $10 billion company minimum. Or if you do build $1 billion company, which pretty much no one can do in the space of 5 to 10 years without taking on external funding and investors and raising capital. There are some rare cases, but it almost never happens. Well, then congratulations, you sold your company for $1 billion and you're gonna walk away with maybe 50 to 200 of that. Now listen, that is a lot of money. I'm not trying to discredit it. I'm just saying you need to know the reality of these things before you set out on these big goals. So for me personally, I went a different route. I built cash flow businesses and paid myself tens of millions of dollars in dividends and distributions. And at this stage of my life, after working so hard and finally being able to enjoy some of the rewards of my effort, quite frankly, I'm just not willing to go through that kind of struggle. What I'm trying to say here is that everyone has different things that they're willing to sacrifice, and there's no right or wrong. Don't let some guy on the internet tell you that you have to give up everything and it's gonna take everything you have and you can never enjoy any moment for the rest of your life and you just have to grind and hustle. And it's like, no, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. That's the truth of it. The truth of it is that some people prioritize more surfing time, more chill time, or more family time, whereas some people, all they want to do is work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that is genuinely their happiness. And that's true to them. You pick. There's no right or wrong. It's your life. As I said, there is no right or wrong. This is such a nuanced conversation. Now let's talk about the fourth reason you might feel like you're behind when you look at everyone online, and that is that geography creates wealth illusions. One of the biggest psychological traps in the money game is comparing your financial situation to people in completely different economic environments. Let me break this down with some reality. That influencer that's flexing the dream lifestyle in Bali, well, they're living like royalty on $3,000 a month, while you're struggling to make rent in New York on $8,000 a month. The math simply doesn't add up the same way everywhere. For the same budget, you can get paradise in Bali, or or you can get a New York studio apartment. Now, over the years, I built my business while traveling to over 40 countries. I will say most of that was actually for work. I'm not one of those big like digital nomad kind of guys. That's just me personally. I like to work in my office or in my designated spaces in my houses. I personally like to work in my home office or one of my actual physical offices. So yeah, funnily enough, most of the time I'm actually traveling for work, but it's given me an interesting perspective on life. And I've seen firsthand how dramatically location affects what rich looks like. Someone making $200,000 in Manhattan might be sharing a tiny apartment with roommates, taking the subway and saving nothing. Meanwhile, that same income in Cape Town, Madrid, or dozens of other international cities could fund a luxury lifestyle with a beautiful home, nice car, and a great lifestyle all year round. So let me share what I mean with actual numbers. In Manhattan, on a $200K salary, after federal taxes, state taxes, and city taxes, as well as social security, you're taking home $11,142 monthly. So your actual take-home pay is about $11,000 a month. Now let's break down your living expenses. A decent one-bedroom apartment, about $4,500 to $5,000. Utilities, $150 to $200. Transportation, $200 to $300. Groceries, $600 to $800. Health insurance, $400 to $600. Other living costs, $500 to $700. So now your living expenses are $8,100 a month, and your savings is only $3K a month. And by the way, that's not even factoring going out, going on vacations, all the other stuff, buying tech or Christmas gifts or whatever. Like, these are just the bare bones. So now let's take a look in Cape Town, South Africa, what that same $200K salary gets you. So let's talk about your living expenses in Cape Town. A luxury 3 to 4 bedroom house with ocean/mountain view, if you get it for a 12-month lease, about $3,000 a month. Dining out and entertainment, $400. Other costs, $300. Groceries, $250. Domestic help and security, $220. Car insurance and fuel, $200. Utilities, $150. Private health insurance, $150. So your living expenses here are almost a third of what you're gonna get in New York, and you're living a much better lifestyle. So the Cape Town resident has almost 3 times more disposable income, lives in a luxury house with stunning views, can afford domestic help, drives a car, enjoys world-class wine country, and saves dramatically more. All of that while maintaining the same income and living in one of the world's most beautiful cities. And by the way, I even inflated some of the living costs here in South Africa, so you could do it for much cheaper than this even. Now I want to make this clear, I'm not telling you to move. It's just about understanding that geographical context completely changes the wealth equation. When you see someone online showing off their amazing lifestyle, always ask yourself, but where are they based? Because 10K a month in Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, or even many parts of South America is functionally equivalent to 30K a month in other major cities. So stop torturing yourself by comparing your chapter 1 in a super expensive city to someone else's chapter 10 in a low-cost location. Either adjust your expectations based on where you choose to live, or consider whether geographic arbitrage might be a strategic move for your specific situation. You see, the smartest players in the modern economy understand that geographic flexibility is a financial superpower. So please do not ignore this massive variable when you're measuring your own financial progress against what you see online. Now let's talk about the last reason why most people seem ahead online, and it comes down to a principle I've said 100 times over. When it rains, it pours. You see, there's this weird phenomenon in wealth creation that people don't talk about enough. Success does not happen in a nice, even predictable pattern. Instead, it comes in massive, concentrated bursts that follow long periods where it seems like nothing is happening. And I call this the rainfall principle. You see, when it rains, it pours. Just how like rain doesn't fall evenly throughout the year. It pours down heavily during certain seasons. Wealth often works in the same way. Listen, even for me, in the first few years of trying to start an online business, I was grinding daily with minimal results. I was doing all the right things, but the needle barely moved. Then I've had periods where in the space of 90 days, I'm not joking, this has happened to me multiple times in the past, where in the space of 90 days, my income has literally 5 to 10x. And by the way, that wasn't briefly. It 5 to 10x, and then it stayed at that monthly rate. And it just continued at that level, only increasing by maybe 20% in the next 2 years. Then it would 5 to 10x again in another 90-day period. And what is happening during those droughts is you're building capacity, skill, connections, and systems that don't immediately show results. You're planting seeds that take time to germinate. The market is silently assessing your value and your consistency. And the dangerous part is when people quit during the drought because they don't understand this principle. They look at others experiencing their rainfall moment and think to themselves, well, why not me? What am I doing wrong here? When honestly, sometimes the answer can be just as simple as your season has not arrived yet. So if you're still in that building phase right now, where it feels like nothing is working despite your best efforts, keep going. That rainfall season, most of the time, comes right after that point of peak pessimism. That moment where you're like, nothing will ever work out for me, and then it changes. So you need to understand your job is not to control when it rains. Your job is to build the infrastructure to capture it when it does. And by the way, here is the other side. If you're watching someone experience their sudden success moment, remember, you're probably not seeing the 2, 3, or 5 years of drought that they endured before the downpour started. Their overnight success was probably years in the making. So the last thing I want to leave you is this. I believe wholeheartedly that absolutely anyone can make $100,000 a year online. Absolutely anyone, no matter where you come from, no matter what you've been through, no matter what skills you have or don't have, you can do it. I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit you that everyone can be a billionaire, or quite frankly, that everyone can be a millionaire. Technically, everyone earns $1 million, but you get what I'm saying here. I don't think that everyone is cut out to run a $5 million a year business or even $1 million a year business, but everyone, absolutely everyone and anyone can make $100K a year online. I know that, and I've seen it firsthand myself countless times, which is exactly why I made this video for you, where I give you the blueprint on how to make money online as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and leave that as the first link in the description. It's just another YouTube video. It's not going to ask for your email or take you to some funny website or anything. So go ahead and watch that video. It's been one of my most recent favorites from you guys. And with that being said, as always, I'm watching from afar and I'm rooting for you.